Here's a question for you. What's holding gaming back, do you think? What's Nintendo going to do next about gaming, do you think? And why, in my opinion, Nintendo's approach might put the rest of the gaming industry, and certainly its hardware competitors, to absolute shame for being fat, greedy, insular, stupid, obsessed with old and outdated ideas about what actually makes gaming good and what we, the gamers, want from our games. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about today. So, hello again, I am Blunty, and as my final plop of video content this year, I mean, aside from my traditional New Year's Eve stream over on Twitch, which, if you want to drop by, that's fine, and whether or not you can or can't drop by, if you want to buy me a drink for the farewell to 2024, I'll plop a link in the down below and in the pinned comment probably, so you can throw a drink's worth of money at me if you like. I only mention it because I've had a couple people, long-time fans, ask to buy me a New Year's drink in celebration for surviving 2024, so I figured I'd just make it easier for those of you who might want to do the same thing. Begging for booze money aside, as my final video this year, I want to look into next year's gaming and talk about why I legitimately think, or at least hope, that Nintendo are about to do the thing they do every now and again and show the whole entire damn gaming industry that their priorities are doinked up and the House of Mario will lead the way down a smarter path for us all. Maybe. Now, as we do close out 2024 as gamers, there's been a new flood of Nintendo Switch 2 rumors, leaks, speculation, and frankly, copium-filled guesswork, and honestly just as much hater bait trap content seething and squirming through the streets and gutters of the city of gamers. If you'll allow me the poeticness of it all. That was a nice turn of phrase there for a second until I ruined it by saying poeticness. Now, I've not much reported on these rumors and whatnot because, frankly, I prefer facts over speculation, but every now and again I check in on it all to see how it's going and what might be closer to the truth than others. Some of the more seemingly likely ones float around supposed leaks from case and accessory brands recently, like the infamously the edgelordy D brand, whose whole brand identity is kind of a manufactured corporate version of rebellious teen, which, frankly, I find really cringy, and not in the fun kind of cringy, but in any case, they recently supposedly offered glimpses into the size and form factor of the Switch 2, which led to many mock-ups, which you might have seen floating around. Then there's other stories recently from development side of things, and those kind of channels, that seem reasonably reliably and frankly unsurprisingly to suggest that the Switch 2 will be fully backwards compatible with Switch OG, Switch 1, I suppose, retroactively. That one's pretty obvious. Considering the monumental success of the Nintendo Switch, it's very, very Nintendo to double down on that hardware architecture approach. We've seen it again and again, time and time again on the ancestral handhelds, the GBA and the DS and the 3DS and the Wii, come to think of it, and the Wii U actually, all supporting hardware-level backwards compatibility to the previous generation. And actually, in the case of the Wii U, if you software modded at least 2 generations back, all the way to the GameCube, because they share the same basic hardware architecture, which, for the context of today's video, the GameCube also marked the last time Nintendo attempted to, outmuscle the competition with raw power instead of outplay them. And this dedication to hardware back compatibility generation to generation is a smart and successful strategy I don't see them skipping out on again. And that does tell us one very important thing about the Switch 2 hardware. It all but guarantees Nintendo will be continuing to use NVIDIA's ARM-based architecture, the Tegra line. Otherwise, true and full backwards compatibility becomes more expensive and impractical and less reliable. But the rumor that seems to have generated the most chatter over the last few weeks especially is the, frankly, largely unsourced discussions about the supposed power of the Switch 2, performance-wise, with the most popular touchpoint being spread around that it will match, or even better, the PS4, or even the PlayStation 4 Pro when docked. From what we think we know about which exact descendant of Tegra hardware that Nintendo are using, probably, or at least using a customized variation of, that PS4 to PS4 Pro power target does seem like a decent enough ballpark for expectations. Now, some are celebrating that as an amazing thing, a whole-ass full-fat PS4 level console the size and form factor of a Nintendo Switch style device. It's awesome, right? Awesome. Others are using the exact same information to argue against it and deride it. I mean, how stupid can Nintendo be launching a new console in 2025 with literally decade-old performance targets? Jeez! The truth is likely somewhere in between. Why it's important, though, is how quickly the Switch 2 can accelerate its marketplace adoption this time around and developer support thereafter. The original Switch started out pretty slow on this because, like many gamers and industry pundits, right down to dorks like me on YouTube offering our opinions and real gamer insights into the void of the interweb nets, developers themselves were also pretty wary about it. The Wii U had been such a catastrophic and embarrassing failure for Nintendo, failure so bad Nintendo was forced to kill off that entire generation of hardware faster than anything else they've ever done before, and its failure was blamed on marketing and the crappy name and the underpowered nature and the reliance on gimmicks and the like, secondary screen mushed in with a control pad. So, when the Switch came along with its big gimmick of being a hybrid handheld and TV docked console with its already outdated and underpowered CPU and GPU combination and its waggle controller gimmicks, well, developers were hesitant to invest much time or money into it, thinking, well, they haven't learned the lesson from the Wii U, have they? Until it demonstrated that they have, and it was going to be successful. Then the rush began, including more than a few so-called impossible ports to the underpowered Switch from games like Doom Eternal and The Witcher 3 and Skyrim and Kingdom Come Deliverance and No Man's Sky, all showing that the Switch was far more capable than anyone had assumed based on what it looked like on paper, because all you need is a clever enough dev to take proper advantage of it. Only then was the Switch taken seriously by all but the most holdout myopic of gamers and devs. So finally, now we're at the glowing dawn of the Switch 2, seemingly, at least from what we think we know so far, promising basically just more of the same, but better, more refined, more powerful, more polished. They're not trying to reinvent anything this time around, they're just making it a little bit better in every corner. This won't be like the Wii to Wii U transition. I feel like Nintendo have learned that lesson because it was never the software for the Wii U that was the problem, as demonstrated by the big success that basically every single Wii U game saw that was ported to the Switch itself. It sold really well. So it wasn't the games that was holding the Wii U back. And I think if they're smart, they being Nintendo, they'll follow Sony's simple generational branding at last. Just use numbers, but not like Xbox uses numbers. That's the bad way to use numbers. But you just use numbers. Just call it the Switch 2, all right? Just call it the Switch 2, just to keep it simple and as clear as possible to even the dumbest of gamers out there. But branding and marketing issues aside, I feel like developers will be much more eager to jump in early this time. If it is simply not much more than a noticeably more powerful Switch, and with NVIDIA's latest DLSS upscaling and frame generation tech and accompanying dedicated tensor cores sewn into the Tegra chip's GPU architecture pipeline, graphics and performance enhancing technology that the PS4 and the PS4 Pro did not have access to. So if the raw performance is about that, but you also have all the modern tech, the DLSS stuff, could be a big thing. It could, I desperately hope, make AAA game devs finally focus on what indie and smaller studios have been showing them for so long now, and Nintendo themselves, frankly, out of absolute necessity, if not choice. Gameplay must come first. It seems obvious, but it's remarkable how many devs don't understand that. Even if graphics can't reach the hyperfidelity stylization of faux photo realistic aims that look good in screenshots and trailers, gotta get the gameplay right. And that is the core of how Nintendo changes the industry again with the Switch 2. GameCube showed them that chasing power was the wrong battlefield. The Wii showed them that fun must come above all else. The Wii U showed them that gimmicks are not the key. The Switch showed them that practicality in their design gimmicks and gamer choice matters. The Switch 2 will hopefully cement all of those lessons and show that the disappointment expressed as gamers when the PS5 launched and we didn't see the kind of generational leap in graphics that we had seen in previous generations in the past didn't actually harm the very healthy sales of the PlayStation 5 anyway. We complained about it, oh, it's not a bigger leap this time around, but we still bought it, didn't we? Why? Because games. Most of the best-selling and most popular games on today's consoles genuinely don't look all that much better than the last generation. In fact, some of the most popular games we've been playing are a generation old. We're just still playing them because they're good. I mean, oh sure, the new games are higher resolution, but we can kind of fake that now with DLSS quite convincingly, and while no doubt many enthusiasts and certainly content creators like to use native resolution as metrics for comparison between hardware when we're doing comparisons, oh, this thing's stronger because it does this resolution. Ask yourself, does it actually make the game more fun if it runs at 1800p upscaled to 4K instead of 1080p upscaled to 4K? In how many games and in what way does that actually genuinely affect how fun the game is to play from a gameplay standpoint? Let me put it this way. What do you think tanked Starfield? We were all very excited about it, but it turned out to be a bit of a wet fart, wasn't it? Do you think it was the graphics? The game looked pretty good. I mean, it wasn't the best looking game out there, but it looked pretty good. Or was it the shitty and uneven performance combined with gameplay that prioritized a marketing bullet point, in this case, the size of the maps? Look at all these planets you can visit, instead of focusing on making that space fun to actually be in. Like putting things on those planets to go see and do, instead of little small towns that would have worked equally as well on one big planetary map instead of separating them between planets. Point is, even better graphics would not have saved Starfield from being just kind of mediocre at best. So, when I imagine a Switch 2 with a PS4 to PS4 Pro level performance, and I imagine a developer eager to jump onto Nintendo's new gravy train, and I imagine what they will be forced to focus on when making their game within those hardware limits, I really like to imagine they think about what's most fun instead of what looks prettiest, because they're not going to be able to make it look the prettiest on limited hardware. So maybe more time, more money, more thought is put into other aspects of the game instead. Because Mario Kart 8, Animal Crossing, New Horizons, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey all rank among the best-selling games on the Switch, and all, you'll notice, come from Nintendo focusing on fun and not graphics. All those games look nice because they've carefully chosen a style that works. They are stylistically pleasant to look at, no worries. But are they class-leading in any graphics? No. Keep going down from that list to the next best-selling games. You get Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Objectively shitty-looking games, but fun, and people liked them. The 23 top-selling games on Nintendo Switch are all from Nintendo first or second-party publishing. And after that, you start seeing the non-Nintendo published top sellers. Monster Hunter Rise, one of my personal favorite games of all time, thousands of hours into that game on Switch, and originally criticized quite heavily for how it looked, especially compared to its predecessor, Monster Hunter World, but very quickly became the best-selling non-Nintendo title on the Nintendo Switch of all time, and the second best-selling Monster Hunter game of all time, even before it went multi-platform. Why? Because the gameplay was the first priority at the expense of the graphics. You can look at their game and you can see where they chose compromises on graphics in order to make the gameplay the priority. What's next on the list if you keep going down? Stardew Valley. Same deal. Gameplay first, and nobody cared anywhere that it looked like it could have run on the Super Nintendo. On and on and on it goes, just like that. Minecraft, another, classic example, the best-selling game of all time. Looks like ass. 16 by 16 textures on great big blocks everywhere. Nobody cares. Developers, please, I am begging you to get on board with this idea. Gameplay first, performance second. Way down further on the list, best graphics. Substance first, style second, or third or fourth. Make the game fun, and then make it run consistently. Then worry about all the rest. For 7 years, Nintendo have been trying to teach you that lesson with the Nintendo Switch, and they're about to teach it to you again with the Switch 2 Electric Boogaloo. Please, developers, learn it this time. I am so tired of seeing big flashy new games and they just run like crap because you've prioritized how they look in trailers instead of how they feel to play. And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in thinking that I would prefer my games to be fun versus looking really good in a screenshot. Don't get me wrong, I like when my games look really good. I love taking in-game screenshots, I enjoy that very much, but not at the expense of gameplay. Like Starfield, I took some fantastic screenshots in that game, but the game wasn't fun enough as a game for me to even finish it, let alone want to replay it, like I do some of its other relatives in the Bethesda stables. And that's without even mentioning the bullshit that came out of Todd and Bethesda when they were talking about, oh, we chose 30 FPS as a target frame rate for stylistic purposes. No, you didn't, because you proved that you didn't do that when you released a patch that unlocked the frame rate later. You did it because you prioritized graphics and 30 frames a second is all you could do at launch, because you didn't have time to make the game properly before you launched it. That's what happened there. Lying pieces of crap. So, said my piece, my last piece for 2024. I do hope you all have a pleasant new year. And to anyone who has thrown a couple of bucks at me for drinky poos over the new year, thank you very much for that as well. And if you can, feel free to jump by the Twitch stream, of course. Until then, I'll see you next year. Ha 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 ha. And thank you to the continued support of the patrons scrolling up above there. I am Blunty, and I'll catch you next time.